So as we're building out our strategic initiatives, our strategic planning, and as we're looking at the best way to implement, we need to also think about how and what it is that we're going to be looking for especially in our team, right? So one of the first things that I want to point out that I think is critical to you understanding what kind of team you're going to stack is you want people that have the ability to take initiative. So as an example, historically, we have a very vertical structure whereby all of the orders come from the top, right? Very parochial, very military, if you will. And there's not anything necessarily wrong with that. There are a few issues that can come about it, which is, number one, you can get silos, right? Whereby these parts of the organization do not actually communicate, right? And the other issue is we always are assuming that the best ideas come from the top, and that's not true. That's not true at all. What we want to, and this is where we come up with more of a horizontal matrix, is probably something more like this, whereby you do have a centralized command and control center, right? But you also have given responsibilities to other individuals running those divisions, something similar to a federation, if you will, a federated model, a federation. Now, they're still reporting, but to a centralized force, but they're also very autonomous. And that's where initiative comes in. That's where initiative comes in. We want people that are going to be able to take their own initiative, right? Think of Napoleon Bonaparte, the emperor of France in the late 1700s and early 1800s. He was always outnumbered military-wise in terms of number of troops. So what did he do? He divided and conquered in the sense that he would allow his generals, his colonels, to his captains, his majors to take their own initiative when things got crazy, right? When the plan wasn't going exactly as it was supposed to, the initiative was there. And so although it was somewhat top down, when they got out into the field, it was much more of a federated type model, right? It wasn't so vertical. Initiative is one of the things that we're looking for, what we're looking for in individuals. Reliability. Right? Reliability. I've got unfortunately, not too long ago, I had to fire someone. And it wasn't because he wasn't good at what he did. In fact, he was fairly exceptional at what he did. So his performance was off the charts. But there was no reliability, because with the reliability comes predictability. So if you can't predict someone's reliability, the entire team might be waiting for that one individual, and we call that a bottleneck, right? And we've talked about bottlenecks. We call that a bottleneck. Reliability usually is paired with someone who's willing to take initiative, okay? It's true. Risk. You have, and I've stated this before, you have change makers. You have change makers in your organization. Give them the ability to make decisions. They want to make decisions. They want responsibility. It's not just about money. And this might mean that you're bringing people from the bottom or the front lines up into a decision-making, into the decision-making realm. If they've earned it, if they know the customer, if they know how to engage, then you'll reduce the risk, right? So here's a change agent, right? Whoops. And these individuals are ready and willing to take on that risk and help you mitigate risk, okay? To help you mitigate risk. Now, this one's a big one. Response or responsiveness. I want to put this in the context of reaction. There's a response and there's a reaction. One of them is involuntary. Which one is involuntary? Response or reaction? If you said reaction, you're correct. One of them is involuntary, and that is the reaction. A response is calculated. Let me give you another example. It's not too long ago that we had a client that was somewhat abusive to my employees. And they were tricky about it. They were sweet when they needed to be sweet, and they were really, really harsh and abusive at other times. And so some days they were great, and we held hope that they would stay this way, but then they would flip, right? This passive aggressive behavior. And I listened to the employees, and I came up with the solution that we were going to fire the client. And they had never fired a client before. And I said, you watch. Because at some point, they're going to fire us. They're not happy, and then they're happy. They're not happy, and they're always trying to nickel and dime us, trying to get more work out of us for less, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to be in a reactionary mode. I don't want to have to be in this involuntary mode. I want to take control of the situation. Responsiveness is about control. Strategy needs initiative, reliability, risk mitigation. Responsiveness instead of reaction. Now, is it always going to be where you're going to be responsive and not reaction? No. No. A lot of your day is going to be reactionary. But to really implement strategic innovation, strategic enterprise, you need to be more responsive than you are reactionary, which means that you need to be thinking beforehand. So we fired the client. And I gave that client a list of the reasons why we were severing the relationship without disparaging them. You see, this is the key. Gave reasons why that they were being let go as a client without disparaging them. That is diplomatic. That is the right way to do it. When you hurt people's egos, they bring out lawyers, even if it's true. And at the very end, as an FYI, my last point was that I always believe that the customer is right. And for me to go back on that would devalue my own brand and the company. Basically, I told them that they were wrong without saying they were wrong, right? I just said, it is my belief that I always follow the rule that the customer is right. And therefore, I will not argue any points that they have. That's it. They're not going, what are they going to say, right? It's responsive. Strategy is responsive much more than reactive. But we need to be prepared for the reactive, right? We need to be prepared. And here's something about being prepared. Some of you are giving presentations to your companies. Some of you are giving presentations every day to customers. Hopefully that is the case. And being prepared means that you're thinking about your customers' responses. It means thinking about your associates' responses or questions before they ask them. That way you can answer them. I'm going to tell you something. In a presentation like this, if you were in the classroom with me, I would have not only prepared my material, obviously I'm a subject matter expert in this space, but I would have also thought about, and I do think about, your questions, even if you're not here. What would I ask? And I'm trying to answer those questions online. I'm trying to get into more detail because you're not here. But most of the time, the wheels fall off a presentation. It's in the Q&A. The wheels usually fall off if you are reactionary and you haven't thought of a response, a controlled response, right? Service. Big deal. This is a big deal. I pride myself in anything, in any business that I'm in, whether it be teaching you, or teaching someone else, or in one of the companies that I run, in being very service-oriented. Being very service-oriented. I want to respond to you within 24 hours. Hopefully within a few hours, depending on my day. Service is a big deal. Most companies look at service as a cost center. I look at it as a profit center. The happier you are, the more likely you are to take another course, right? And it's as simple as that. I don't want to hide it. That's as simple as that. And I love that. And I love transferring my knowledge to you. Speed. So how quickly we get back to you, right? Initiative, reliability, risk, responsiveness versus being reactionary, service, speed. This is a major part of building and stacking a team. What we're looking for, how we're going to do it, right? What we're looking for, how we're going to do it. Now, I want to tie this into some things that you're going to need to implement and some of the things that you're measured by in your organization. So before we do that, I want to make sure that we define some key terms here. Risk is about exposure, right? Risk is about exposure. You're often measured, which means that they assign a number to you. And usually this number is performance-based. And they are really not just evaluating your performance, but their exposure in terms of risk to you. What is your performance relative to your skill set, relative to your position? This determines pay increases. This is linear to promotions, etc., etc., etc. The metric, and this is where I want you to think. This is where I really want you to think. The metric is the interpretation. So although you may be assigned a number, let me give you an example. I'm often rated, and the individuals above me hand down these numbers, and they give me this metric system that I have to follow, and that's supposed to be my interpretation. You can change the number if you're not happy with it. You can change the interpretation if it does not include all of the intangible assets, which we talked about in a couple of classes ago. The intangible assets that you bring. Just because you're not, say, the best player doesn't mean that you're not the most valuable player. Right? A very important point. Just because you're not the best player doesn't mean you're the most valuable player. Right? Very, very important. I'm Senor Chavez, and yes, we're cooking with gas.